we come across various stimuli, and our brain brings it together to create the colorful world we live in. Absolute threshold is any small stimuli around us. Difference threshold is any new or removed stimulus changing the environment. Weber's law is the concept that a noticeable difference in a stimulus is equal to the magnitude of the original stimulus. For example, the noises around us. You hear them, but can you tell the difference? Most people cannot. When there is a very small difference in the sound, one cannot tell which one is louder. When we walked into the mall, the stimulus or loud noise and good smell caused sensation or activation of the body and brain. Our brains then analyze the incoming information, also known as perception. Eventually, we got used to the atmosphere. This is called adaptation. We all perceive things differently based on our individual preference. For example,
I like those shoes. I wish I could buy them.
oh my God, look at her shoes.
That girl is giving me the death stare. How rude. I think she hates my shoes.
Sight is one of the most important senses that we have. Our ability to see is extremely important for getting along in our world. To understand the process of light transmission to the brain, a closer look at the retina is necessary. The retina is located on the back lining of the eyeball and contains some special cells called photoreceptors. A journey light takes through the eye and onto the brain, completing our sensation of how we see. It's all about the two types of photoreceptors in the retina of our eyes. Cones are responsible for sharp focus and rods are retinal and give receptors that detect black, white, and gray, necessary for peripheral and twilight vision when cones don't respond. There are two basic theories of color vision that are trichromatic theory and the opponent process theory. According to trichromatic theory, we see three kinds of cones activated. For example, this light is blue and the blue-violet cones are activated, while the other cones are as active. In another theory, which is the opponent process theory of color, these cones are linked in pairs that are corresponding at differing times. The opponent process and trichromatic process are both working to create a colorful image so we can accurately perceive all the elements of everyday life, from waking up to the sun in the early morning to the stars and lights of the city at night.
Place theory of hearing states that the different areas of the basilar membrane respond to the different frequencies, like how humans cannot hear some high pitches such as a dog whistle. The theory of hearing states that the entire basilar membrane acts like a microphone, vibrating as a whole in response to a sound. The vibrations pass through different areas in the ear, sending messages to your brain. The ear is not just for hearing, it also deals with your balance. Semicircular canals and otoliths help you keep balance. There is a fluid in the semicircular canals, which when you spin around, so does the fluid, which makes you dizzy, disoriented, and throws off your balance. All this comes together so we can enjoy the music and sounds of the world. Without hearing and balance, life wouldn't be as colorful or enjoyable.
also known as olfaction, is the ability of humans and other animals to perceive odors. It permits us to detect more than 10,000 separate smells. What you smell are tiny things called odor particles. Millions of them are floating around waiting to be sniffed by your nose. Our sense of smell is connected really well to our memory. The odor particles travel through the nasal passages and meets with the olfactory cells. Olfactory cells are receptor neurons of the nose which are spread across the nasal cavity. There have been found more than 1,000 receptor neurons in the olfactory cells. These cells are transmitted to the brain where they are combined into recognition of a particular smell. Oh my God! The sense of taste, also known as gustation, it refers to the ability to detect the flavor of substances. Receptor cells that respond to 4 basic stimulus qualities, such as sweet, sour, salty, and bitter. There is a 5th category named umami. Humans receive taste through a sensory organs called taste buds. There are about 10,000 taste buds distributed across the tongue and other parts of the mouth and throat. Taste buds wear out and are replaced every 10 days. Allow us to perceive only bitter, sweet, salty, sour, and umami. But it is our odor molecules from food that gives us most of our taste sensation. When you put food in your mouth, odor molecules from that food travel through the passage between your nose and mouth to olfactory receptor cells at the top of your nasal cavity. Non-humans release pheromones. Pheromone is a secret chemical factor that triggers a social response in members of the same species, such as a sexual availability. Skin senses, touch, pressure, temperature, and pain play a critical role in survival, making us aware of potential danger to our bodies. According to the gate-control theory of pain, the theory suggests that the spinal cord contains a neurological gate that either blocks pain signals or allows them to continue on to the brain. Pain signals traveling via small nerve fibers are allowed to pass through, while signals sent by large nerve fibers are blocked.
We are actively trying to make sense of the world around us through organizing what we see and experience. So far, we've studied what our initial response is to a stimuli. Now, let's move into what our mind makes of the stimuli. Our perception is a process of putting puzzle pieces together to construct a meaningful situation. This process of fitting these pieces together is known as Gestalt laws of organization. In our process of understanding this information, we usually group elements to create an enclosed image. We also tend to group elements together that are closer in proximity. We make links between these elements that are similar, and we construct images in the simplest form. We also use processes like top-down and bottom-up. Top-down processing uses context to determine the missing information, so we can achieve closure. Helps us fill in the gaps. While bottom-up processing consists of our ability to recognize detail, processing individual components. Perceptual consistency is a phenomenon where physical objects are perceived as unvarying despite changes in its appearance. Perceptual consistency brings depth to our world. We recognize that we don't live in a two-dimensional world, but a three-dimensional one. That's why when the moon is rising and shifting through the night, it doesn't compute in our minds as it's shrinking. Depth perception is created because we have two eyes that piece together a whole image. This is where the image that we are able to perceive, the distance and placement. Our brain receives these cues and is able to make sense of it all. Perceptual illusion is where the brain processes information in error. In a way, the visual information that you are taking in gets jumbled up. Our brain misinterprets this information, producing an image that isn't exactly what it seems. In subliminal perception, we perceive a message without being aware of it. This process is also known as priming. It can influence our thoughts and ideas, but only known to influence us in minimal ways. All of this said, we have considered the main differences between how our initial reaction is to a stimuli through sensation of all 5 senses and the way our brain perceives and organizes this information, giving insight into how we interpret the world we experience through our daily activities.
You don't need the arm, do you want it?
You don't need the arm.